My clock says 2 o'clock. Why don't we go ahead and get started? People will join us whenever they do. Let me hold on. All right. Introductions will not be conducted. If speaking, please introduce yourself, especially for the minutes. Please make sure you are muted if not speaking. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's May RTPA meeting. Does anybody have any additions or changes to the agenda to make note of? No, we'll keep it going. Agenda item number 3 is approval of meeting notes from the prior meeting back in March. I know I just sent them along with the final agenda, so we don't need to take any action right now. If you have any comments or corrections, please let me and Don know. Agenda item number 4, elections for fiscal year 21-22 moderator and vice moderator. At the last RTPA meeting, Don Batiste of Sandag has been nominated to be the next moderator, and Ryan Niblock has been nominated to be the vice moderator. Is there a consensus here? Does somebody want to make a formal motion like Sarkis? Followed by a second by Jose Luis.
I would like to formally nominate Don Batiste of Sandag as RTPA moderator and Ryan Niblock of San Joaquin Council of Governments as vice moderator for fiscal year 2021-22.
All right. Jose Luis?
You know, I thought we were going to do this as 2 separate items, but no, I'll second Sarkis's motion.
We all got things to do. One motion. All right. Is all those in favor? Yes. All right.
Aye.
Oh my God. Looks like unanimous support right there. Anybody against? That would be awkward.
Hey, Yvonne, Sarkis and I, we are consensus builders.
You
We put in
guys
the
are.
groundwork to make it happen.
That's called speak softly and carry a big stick. All right. Agenda item number 5 is the RTPA committee and other reports. The first one is the strategic highway safety plan. We do have a vacancy left by Elizabeth Hahn of San Joaquin. Is it San Joaquin? San Joaquin COG.
Stanislaus.
Or Stanislaus, sorry, from the Valley. Anyway, I reached out to Fresno COG, and Jennifer Solis talked to Tony Boren, and they have graciously accepted to fulfill those committee assignments with the statewide RTPA support, of course. If there's any other nominations, I would love to hear it of anybody. Is everybody okay with this nomination of Fresno COG? Yeah?
Yep.
All right. That
Thank you,
looks like a
Jennifer.
unanimous
Thank
support
you.
right there.
Thank you all.
No, thank you, Jennifer. Seriously, thank you, Tony. But anyway,
No problem.
the next committee report, I was reached by Gabriel Gutierrez that Jennifer, you'll be making the local street and road report.
I am, but it's really not a big update at all. The consultant just presented the draft report in April to the group, and the final plan should be complete next month. That's really the only update. No update really.
There was a separate workshop on that report.
Correct.
That was very well done, and it is recorded. So if anybody would like to see it, I thought she did an amazing job. Seriously. So if you do want it, I have it recorded, and I'd be glad to send you the link.
Yeah, she's really great. And also I know what was discussed at that workshop was that the maps and data from the report would be available for each county. So Gabriel is working on getting that information for everybody.
So he's gonna, once he lets me know, I know it was raised at that one committee, if we could just take that for our own respective reporting.
Yes,
And.
he's
so
working with Margot right now to get that information on how each county can access that information.
And I will blast that out to you all when it is available.
Yeah, and Yvonne, this is Dawn. I just want to say, if you send me the link as well, I can just include it in the minutes right here as well. So we have it multiple places.
Sounds good.
If we get it by then, we will definitely send it.
Okay. I didn't think it was gonna take that long to get. Because it's there.
So as soon as he gets it, I'll have him forward it.
All right, that sounds good.
Great.
CalCog update, well, I'm sorry, any questions for Jennifer? All right. Bill, are you with us? All right,
I am.
CalCog update.
Apparently, there's going to be, the governor's going to announce a budget this week. That's supposed to be humorous.
Really?
Yeah. You know, right now, what we're doing is, I think we've talked a little bit about our, you know, there's a few SB 375 bills that have been made 2-year bills. We have, I think we spoke a little bit last time about the Freedman Bill 1147 that appears to be moving, and we expect more amendments to come out in the Appropriations Committee. This is a bill that created something called the 2035 Target Action Plan within the Regional Transportation Plan statute. We expect some of that to be cleared up so that at least it won't be in the Regional Transportation Planning statute anymore. And our Assembly Member Friedman also made a $250 million budget request. We'll see what happens in the May revise at the end of the week. The birds are telling me that there'll be something in the budget for some kind of SB 375 implementation, though it won't look exactly like what Ms. Friedman perhaps proposed. And then everything else is we're in Assembly Fiscal Committee bill season. And we are waiting for the committees to figure out what they're going to suspend and what they're going to let pass. And finally, I'll just point all your direction to, and I've talked to your planning staff, but ARB has published a mobile source strategy, a revised mobile source strategy that's out for comment right now. And pages 99 to about 125 focus on vehicle miles traveled. And so those of you who have issues are very excited about the CAPDI process. Some of those same issues will carry over, although I still think that there are issues that we have to work on in the mobile source strategy, but I think this mobile source strategy has made some progress over what the first draft was as it relates to VMT and the MPO's role. So that is what I have for now, but I am happy to answer questions, address any issues I forgot to address, or just say that Yvonne is doing a good job.
Funny. Mike Woodman, no ARB comments?
No, but I'll be interested to take a look at that and dive in.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Bill. I was not aware.
Applies more to the MPOs, but it's always good to keep an eye on it and help to educate ARB.
Any?
You know, it's that kind of service-minded attitude, Mike, that just makes you a special contributor to this group.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Bill. FHWA update. Do we have Paul or Antonio?
Yeah, this is Antonio.
Thank you.
Things. The first one is the State Freight Planning Toolkit Regional Workshop. Will be held June 17th from 11 to 2 p.m. Hopefully you've received something by now, but if you haven't, just let me know. And I'll work to try to get that out to you. The second thing I have on my list is all of you should know by now, but my division administrator approved the electronic submittal of FTIPs and FTIPs. And so, please use that. That was a 2-year endeavor between our office, FDA, and Caltrans to get that approved. And that is also a tool that should cut down on some of the delays in approval, approval of projects. And then the final thing is also when we approved the FSTIP, which included all of the FTIPs, we also issued a federal planning finding. That planning finding included 1 corrective action, and I believe 3 recommendations. Even though it was issued to Caltrans, that corrective action and recommendations is for all of the state of California. And so very quickly, I'm just going to tell you all what they are, and then that will be the end for me. Let me pull it up. So the corrective action pertains to, where is it at? CMAQ and STBG program administration and oversight. If you are a large NPO who gets those allocations directly, then you've already heard from us. Essentially, this comment is to let you know that it has officially been issued to the state of California. Please, if you are using STBG or CMAQ funds, review the federal guidance and address your program accordingly. In terms of the recommendation, evaluation of facilities repeatedly requiring repair and reconstruction due to emergency events. What this is if you're having emergency events in your region and you're constantly finding yourself allocating funds for particular projects to address that, then that information needs to be included in your long range plans and also your FTIPs for consideration when programming, certain funds. And then performance-based planning and programming. Much thanks to all of you all who have implemented performance-based planning and programming. But there is a part in there called transportation performance management, and how those things link together oftentimes is determined by the data that you share. And so as I work with Caltrans, please be open and available as we try to develop some type of process for adequate data sharing. Remember as well that when Caltrans report whether or not they're reaching their targets, it's not just for the state, it's for all of the areas within the state. And so data from locals, from NPOs, and from RTPAs is going to be extremely important for California to reach their targets. And then finally, transportation conformity. For those of you who are in urbanized areas that are non-attainment or maintenance, if you notice this year with the FSTIP, we did it a little bit different. The difference in that is you did not send your conformity stuff directly to us. And if you did, we did not respond to you. We waited for Caltrans to send us a recommendation for approval of the FTIP. With conformity being a part of your FTIP and your plan, we are now requesting that everything goes through Caltrans in one process so that we can better manage that process. And that's all I have from Federal Highway. And are there any questions?
When did those corrective actions go out, Antonio?
March 16th, 2021.
Okay. Any questions for Antonio?
Hey, Antonio, Jose Luis here at SACOG. I think you misspoke. It's April 16th.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks.
I appreciate you pointing it out. I found out we got the approval. Thank you. And I've just moved on, but I didn't pay attention to the final pages with the corrective action. Thanks for
Yeah, please read that. I mean, that is for the whole state of California.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, this is Asad Hamida from LA Metro. And Antonio, I reviewed the guidelines on HIP that FDA posted on its website. However, they're quite extensive, I have to admit, those funds that made available by CRISA. But is there a way that there's going to be a more detailed, a webinar maybe to be able to address questions that are not answered or addressed by the guidance as applicable to, for example, the process? The questions that we have been receiving is about the process. How do I obligate HIP CRISA funds if they are under the special authority, quote unquote, defined in the FHWA guidance, according to which there's no need for documentation? And this goes to revenue losses from gas tax or revenue losses from sales tax, due to the pandemic. So any insight that you can provide, particularly as if an agency wants to obligate the funds and the HIP funds, they don't need to be in the FTIP. Do we still go through the E76 process? So I think there's going to be a follow-up question from me to Caltrans, but any insight that you can provide would be helpful. Thank you.
HIP guidance? Or
HIP CRISA.
Say it again.
Highway infrastructure programs funding made available through the CRISA Act.
Yeah, just send that question. Send it to Caltrans. You can CC me on it so that we can have a, whatever response I give to you is also Caltrans are aware of that. And then just provide all the information that you can, because as you know, that program change every time there is a new funding bill.
Yeah. Thank you, Anton.
Good question. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Antonio. Appreciate it.
No problem, anytime.
Is Paul speaking up or that's it?
No, I'm Antonio and Paul today.
All right. Thank you, sir. Moving on. We are on agenda item number 8, RTPA priorities, but in regards to potential state budget surplus. Just a little background. Julia Kingsley reached out to me, it was about a week or so ago, and just wanted to touch base and ask, what I thought were the RTPA priorities. Should there be a budget surplus for transportation? So we had a conference call. I invited Don Batiste of Sandag to join us. These priorities are going to change for all of us. What's important over here up north may be something completely different down south and whatnot. So I invited Julia to ask you all, and she can speak for herself. But as part of this agenda item, I did include Kiana Valentine's letter, which I think is relevant to the subject matter, and that's included in the PDF that I sent out as part of the final agenda. Ms. Kingsley.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for having me. Very honored to be on the agenda. I mean, Yvonne kind of said it all. We're just in no way, there's Christine Fair on the line too, but we're, with the Assembly Transportation Committee staff, and we are not the lead in any way on any budget proposals, but we're just gathering information. So we reached out to a couple of different, organizations, CTA, you guys, just trying to get a feel for, there's an understanding that there is going to be quite a budget surplus. And so if we want to be prepared, if asked, what would be good projects to fund, what we want to have a good answer. And we figured you all would be a great place to kind of gather some information. And as Yvonne said, priorities change throughout the state. So, we had talked about the importance of flexibility, some about, resiliency funding, sustainable community strategy, block grants, those kind of things came up in our conversation, but it'd be great to hear from you all just in the spirit of listening and information gathering, anything that you can any feedback you can give to us about what your priorities may be. That's my item.
And I did invite Kiana to join us because she works a lot with you all too, and she has a pulse for what the needs are as well. With that, priorities. Sarkis, get us started.
Okay. Thank you, Yvonne. Hi, Julia. Hi, Kiana. So first of all, thank you guys for all your efforts that you're doing to help raise the profile of transportation as part of the budget process. We really appreciate it. Our agency has communicated support for the Transportation California proposal. And for us specifically, we appreciate the diverse programs included in there. But for us specifically, we'd appreciate any augmentation of the SB1 competitive programs, just because there continues to be a great need for those types of programs, especially for transformative projects. So I know there's been like indication of doing a 1-year augmentation. If there even could be a 2-year augmentation of that, that would be great. And then we also appreciate the inclusion of funding for the active transportation program and the state transportation improvement program. I think funding for that program helps the regions and Caltrans with having local priority projects, but they also meet statewide goals. So we're thankful for that as well.
Thanks, Sarkis. Mike, I saw you raise your hand. Woodman.
Yeah, hi, Julia. Really appreciate the outreach that you're doing on this. Mike Woodman, Executive Director of the Nevada County Transportation Commission. And I also serve as chair of the North State Super Region. We also support the California Transportation funding proposal, but giving you kind of a rural agency perspective, funding for the ATP program is greatly appreciated. It's often very challenging for the rural agencies and especially our local city and county agencies to put together. They have good projects, but they don't always put together the best applications and don't compete as well in the different statewide pots. Additional funding there would go a long way to funding transformative projects within rural communities. The Highway Bridge Program is another one where there are significant it's a significantly underfunded program, and there are needs across rural California for the bridge program and funding. Also, augmenting the state transportation improvement program is really critical for many of the rural counties. A lot of these counties have interregional highway routes that we've been working on for years, but with our small regional improvement program formula share, it literally takes decades to, fund 3 miles of highway at a time. And these are critical wildfire evacuation routes and truly safety and operational improvements. And these projects don't induce significant BMT, and they actually do reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So they align with the CAPTI, and they're critical safety, and we need them in wildfire evacuation areas. It's not a matter of if we're going to have a severe wildfire, it's a matter of when the next one's going to hit, and we need to get those facilities improved to be able to evacuate our communities. And then also ZEV infrastructure is important to the North State Super Region. We continue to pursue funding opportunities to implement ZEV infrastructure across the North State. And so we support that as well. And then as Sarkis mentioned, the SB1 competitive programs, any supplemental funding in those programs would be beneficial as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Kiana, I'm going to call on you because I think you have another meeting. Don't you?
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. And thanks for inviting me. I had some technical trouble, so unfortunately didn't hear Julia's full sort of introduction and presentation. For the good of the order, I have met Transportation California when we were putting the funding proposal together sort of in its infancy just a few weeks ago. Did have an opportunity to meet with Julia and Farah and Assemblymember Friedman's personal staff as well. I think if I were to make any point this afternoon for Julia and team, it's that over the last couple of weeks, Transportation California has endeavored to make this a consensus-based transportation proposal that supports rural, suburban, urban projects alike, coastal, inland, central, north, south, that will help accelerate the state's climate, public health, and equity goals by investing in the types of projects that I think Assemblymember Friedman is interested in seeing go forward, that, you know, will create jobs and support sort of ripple effects, positive ripple effects throughout the economy. It's grown a little bit since you all have seen it, and this is a helpful reminder for me to get back on my email and send you the most recent version in a little bit. And, you know, we're hopeful that the Assembly member can support the effort and be a champion for us as the legislature endeavors to try to spend an unheard of one-time state budget windfall. And so just appreciate being a part of the conversation. So grateful for all of our regional partners who have provided input into the proposal. And I think just makes it more robust, more comprehensive, and more valuable, regardless of the type of community you are in the state of California. So thanks so much, Ivan. I'm also welcome to take questions.
Any questions? All right. Anybody else? What was that, Adrian? Oh.
I'll chime in.
right.
We're particularly interested in the Sustainable Communities Block Grant Program, but we actually have our own. It's called Green Means Go, and we're particularly interested in trying to get funding for that.
Okay.
Julia knows what I'm talking about. All right, great.
Got it.
Yes, we've heard of you.
California famous.
Right. Yeah, and you know, I should say too, this is certainly not the only opportunity. You know, time is of the essence, as you know, you all know the budget process moves quickly, and it is. We heard earlier, you know, it's kind of like in a black hole, like where are we going? But so, you know, feel free to also reach out to us personally. You know, my email is julia.kingsley@asm.ca.gov.
We'll include that in the minutes.
Yes. Great. And are there any other questions? Okay, yes, okay.
Hi, so Nafili Barrett, Mendocino Council of Governments, and I just wanted to add my comments. Mendocino Council of Governments also signed on in support of Transportation California's proposal, and in particular, we appreciate the wide range of programs that would be moved forward through that proposal. In particular, interest in rural Mendocino County. The active transportation program is critical. And, you know, I think Mike Woodman made the comment that we have local agencies that have good projects, but still sometimes struggle to compete. So that would be helpful. The highway bridge program is a program that we've really heard from local agencies that is critical. We have important bridge projects that are really ready to go, and you know, they're being told that they're going to have to wait years before those can move forward. And then the STIP is, you know, additional funding for that program would be really beneficial, because that's something that is a significant funding source for us in rural counties to move forward larger infrastructure projects. And then finally, the climate change adaptation funding for actual infrastructure improvements, because we have conducted those planning efforts to identify projects that are needed in terms of adapting, particularly for wildfire evacuation, but funding the actual improvements has been a real struggle, just due to the limits on available funding, both as far as you know, what is eligible, as well as the amount of funding available. So those would be sort of our biggest priorities.
Thank you, Nafili. Anybody else?
Yvonne, you have a comment in the chat.
Julia, the Santa Cruz County RTC board priorities are consistent with prior speakers, but explicitly priorities include stabilizing and increasing funds in the STIP, increased funding for pedestrian, bicycle and transit projects, increased funding for cities, county, and regions to support economic development, and to ensure a strong role for regional and local agencies in determining transportation investment priorities. All right. Anybody else? Julia? Yes, Bill.
I just want, I see Kiana's hand is up too. I just actually wanted to thank Kiana because she really listened to a lot of you. A lot of you contacted me and said, hey, it should have this idea and that idea. And I shared that with her. A lot of you just went straight to the source, which was the better strategy, and talked to her directly. And she listened to all of you. And I just want to thank Kiana for her leadership in trying to wrangle all of our needs and wants. So thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I actually was hoping to ask Julia a quick question. I don't know if you have an answer for it, but I'm gonna throw it out there and see. We were on the phone with Senate budget staff earlier and heard there was a deadline of the end of next week, early the following week, like May 23rd, for trailer bill language to support legislative sponsored proposals. Not sure if you've heard anything on the side of the assembly, all the letters from the budget chair. I haven't seen anything to date like that, but I thought I would throw it out there to see if you had any information.
Kiana, this is Farah. Yeah, we haven't heard anything on that front. I would check directly with the budget committee and see if they know. Yeah,
I'll do that. And then just for Farah and Julia in the group, we are took to heart Genevieve in budget committee a week and a half ago now said, have your language ready to go. So we are working on that. We're vetting it with the CTC right now, as they would have sort of responsibility for a lot of this additional funding. And then we'll be sharing it with staff inside the legislature and all of you at RCTF and the other regional organizations. So that's probably forthcoming early next week. We're going to get through May revise and then we'll tackle that next step. So thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you all. Julia, Kiana, thank you for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on, CTC updates. We'll kick it off with Paul on state and federal legislative matters, as well as the ATP augmentation.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. For state and federal legislative matters, we're not recommending any positions on bills at this meeting. I heard Bill Higgins provided an update on some bills and where they are in the legislature, so I wasn't going to spend any more time on that item unless there's any questions for me.
Hey, Paul, just a quick question. I forget the bill number. I've been too busy chasing other things. That was referencing the executive director appointment for CTC. Did that never move out of committee and basically died?
Yeah, it did not get heard in policy committee, so it's not moving forward this year. Technically, it's still alive and could come back next year, but for this year, it's done. We did we were successful finally in getting a meeting with Assemblymember Cervantes to discuss that bill. Myself, Mitch, and Commissioner Taglione met with her at the beginning of April. She told us that she introduced the bill because she felt that the Inland Empire region had not obtained I guess what she thinks of as a fair share of SB1 competitive funds. And we briefed her that that's not consistent with our information in terms of how the Inland Empire as a whole has done in the competitive programs. if you look at it based on population, that areas received roughly the same percent as their population makes up of the state population. And if you look at it in terms of the percentage of funds requested that areas received, it's roughly similar to what the statewide average is. So that's really all the information I have to share on it. She had wanted me to follow up with her staff to kind of go through some of that information in more detail, and I attempted to, and we haven't been able to set up a meeting. But yeah, to answer your question, the bill's not moving forward this year.
Great. Glad you're able to finally catch up and provide some clarifying information.
So, oh, sorry.
Oh, continue.
Oh, I was going to move on to the ATP augmentation, unless there's,
Okay.
okay. So we're going to have an agenda item, an information item, where we will discuss the request that we made to the administration for an augmentation for the active transportation program. So just as some quick background, at our March commission meeting during the information item on CapTI, as many of you know, there is a part of CapTI that suggests redirecting funds from other programs to the active transportation program. And, you know, Commissioner Alvarado said, instead, why don't we request funding from the one-time general fund surplus, which just had sort of come to light around that time that it was going to be as big as it is, as you heard from Kiana. So he directed staff to submit a request to the administration for $2 billion one-time augmentation from the general fund. And we did that in early April. The proposal that we submitted to the administration would fund as many projects from the current cycle as we think are good projects. So I do want to clarify, I think there might be some misconceptions about the scoring rubrics for the program. We are proposing to fund all of the projects that scored 60 and above. And I know some people hear that and think 60 out of 100, and they think of grade school and report cards, and that's a failing grade. But in the ATP program, it's not. The way the scoring rubrics are set up, projects that scored 60 and above have adequately and sufficiently met the scoring criteria. So we're trying to fund as many projects as those that we can, given the time that people spent on the applications, the merit of these projects, as well as the desire by both the administration and the legislature that we've heard to spend any transportation infrastructure one-time funds as quickly as possible. These projects have already been vetted. We don't need to have a new application process. We can just start getting them funded in the budget year. So we that would take up about 1.5 billion of our $2 billion proposal. And with the remaining 500 million, we would propose some pilot programs to do some of the bigger projects that we haven't really been able to do in the ATP due to lack of funding. So bike highways and things like that. If we had a dedicated fund source, we could do those. And maybe I will stop. One other thing to share is that I know you had Assembly Policy Committee staff just on, but the Assembly Democrats released a budget blueprint at the end of April. And in that plan, they had a point about funding the active transportation program backlog, which is very positive. We won't know what the administration is proposing until the May revise comes out later this week.
All right. Questions for Paul? Mike.
Hey, Paul, this is Mike Woodman with the Nevada County Transportation Commission. I would just support the CTC ATP staff proposal. Just to, give an example for Nevada County, the Nevada County Transportation Commission submitted 2 ATP projects, and we actually hired a consultant to help us prepare those projects. And we scored relatively high in the high 80s, almost made the funding cutoff. The County of Nevada, as well as the town of Truckee, submitted applications that they prepared themselves and scored probably in the high 60s or the low 70s. And, you know, I know the projects, they're good projects. It's just the difference of having internal staff at a city county level try to prepare these ATP applications versus us having a consultant funded to prepare them. So they're good projects, but, you know, agency staff, when you're limited, can only do so much. And they maybe truly don't grasp just how competitive the program is.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great point.
Who has their hands up? I can't see them. I don't know why. Don. All right.
Yeah, so
Then Ryan.
Paul, so Paul, you mentioned the idea that, you know, there would be a, you know, desire in this augmentation to get projects out there expeditiously. I'm wondering if there's any concern or risk that this program has been so oversubscribed that most people don't necessarily anticipate getting everything that they submit for. And I'm wondering if there's competition for the match that was identified or other things. If there's any concern that, you know, that some of those projects that are 60 and above would still all be able to go forward on the schedule if they were all awarded.
Yeah, so I know it is obviously unusual. No one anticipated this general fund windfall. So I think to mitigate that concern, we do plan, you know, with Caltrans to go through the apps, you know, just one more time to see if there are any issues, as well as talk with the applicants, you know, if there would be any. I mean, it is possible if someone submitted a project and for whatever reason felt like they weren't ready or couldn't do it, they don't have to, you know, accept the award. I saw Lori popped on, not sure if she wants to add anything.
Yeah, I was just gonna say what you said, that if an agency just feels like they can't take the award, they can just turn it down. That happened maybe a couple of times in SB1 augmentation. I think sometimes agencies worry that looks bad, but we wouldn't, you know, count that against them at all.
Okay. Ryan, you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks very much. Ryan Niblock, San Joaquin Council of Governments. So I had a chance to speak with some CTC staff about ATP, including Lori and Beverly. And so I shared this feedback with them already, but for the good of the group, I wanted to share that. So we are supportive, definitely supportive of finding more funds for these active transportation projects. We see that the demand is through the roof. So much so that in San Joaquin, we made it a combined call for projects with our local sales tax measure. So in addition to the 3.5 million that was made available to us in the regional share, we threw $15 million of our own money in to make sure that, you know, we knew we weren't going to get all projects in the 90s on scores. So I guess my concern would be that just because we did throw in our own money, I don't want my region to miss out because we may have already funded some of our projects that were above 60. Is there a way for us to continue to have some consideration for that? I don't know how that might look, but I just want to make sure that my region or any others that may have had a combined call for project with other fund sources doesn't end up missing out on this augmentation because we were proactive with other funds.
So I don't know that I fully kind of understood the scenario that you were laying out, but it sounds like you've talked with Lori. You know, I think there could be a lot of maybe different reasons why people might want to have some of the money for a new cycle to submit new applications. But in general, we're really trying to focus on, like I said, funding as many of the projects that we just vetted and reviewed that we can get going in the budget year as soon as possible, because if we get a big augmentation for the ATP and don't use it for say like 2 years for a new cycle, I think there'll be a lot of concern with that. I think there's an expectation to try and use the money as quickly as possible.
So we have projects. So the scenario that I'm describing is, so we were given 3.5 million in regional ATP to work with for our regional call for projects. We expected we'd get a lot more demand than just for 3.5 million. We got $52 million worth of project requests in San Joaquin County against that 3.5. So we threw in 15 million of our own money. We still only funded 1/3 of the total project. So we've got, tens of millions of dollars worth of ATP projects. We just want to make sure that we don't miss out if some of our projects have already received local measure funds, if they're not above the 60 mark, or or if they're checked off because of the 60 mark. We wouldn't mind using this augmentation funds instead of our local measure, and maybe use our local measures for expanding our list, something like that.
I think it may be a little too early to tell. Let's wait and see if we get anything, and then go from there.
I just figured we might not be the only ones who did that.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the chat first, then Dominica, then Kenny. In the chat from David Chan, will any of the supplemental ATP funds go to the MPO's regional programs? Still think it's too soon to tell. I don't know. Paul, Lori?
Yeah, so the proposal that we submitted was going down in the statewide down to the 60. I think a lot of the projects, there's probably duplication, amongst what was in the statewide and what was in the MPOs, but that was how we structured it.
Okay, and the second chat is, what about prior cycle projects that were awarded and facing unanticipated cost increase? Seems logical with this one-time windfall to at least have a conversation or establish a process to ensure existing program ATP projects move forward timely and with a sound finance plan. Or has this been already considered and dismissed? The issue of equity should consider regional agencies that don't have self-help funds and assist them whenever possible. And that was from Slowcog.
I'll say, Yvonne, with all of these ideas, this money is going to go fast, isn't it?
Yeah, yep.
I hadn't even thought of that one. Funding cost over. I don't even know how we do that, but we could.
Yeah, we generally don't do cost overruns.
Well, I really hope we have this problem and there is a windfall that we do need to meet further to go over these details. Dominica Smith.
Hi there, this is Dominica from LA Metro, and Metro supports increased funding for active transportation. That would include the opportunity to fund both high priority Cycle 5 projects, as well as projects through new solicitations if that is the plan. We also support the funding of active transportation programs targeting bicycle highways and complete active transportation networks, focusing on facilities that generally serve trips of 5 miles or more and support higher speeds of travel. So thank you.
Thank you. Kenny, then Jose Luis.
Right, thank you. Kenny with MTC. I agree with Yvonne that if this passes, this would be a good problem to have, and I want to have this problem and figure out what to do with the money. But until then, I think it's still very high level. I think one of the great things about ATP, of course, there are many, but one of them I wanted to highlight was the great workshop process that we have to include a lot of viewpoints in the guidelines development. And I know that's a lot of work for Lori and her team, but it really gets to a program that I think is, really, gets the buy-in and consensus of everyone. And I would just like to, still request that, whatever money, if we get extra money, that it also go through some sort of workshop process. I know that we have to show that there is need, of course, and we have a lot of need around the state. But one concern that I always would have is that, for Cycle 5, a lot of agencies either sat this one out because their projects either maybe weren't ready, or they didn't think that they were competitive because maybe, you know, they didn't think they can compete when there's only 200 million available. But if there's $2 billion available, then, you know, a lot more projects would have, you know, applied. And I think that that's missing in cycle 5. And so I think that's something that I would like to have some flexibility in the future to, you know, explore that option. Yeah, those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Jose Luis.
I'm gonna second Kenny's. I raised my hand before I heard Kenny speak, but yes, we also share concerns. I can't point to the specific project, but we have applications that don't come in because sponsors are worried. They're doing the calculation and they're thinking if they can't get a 90, not to apply. And I'd love an opportunity to be able to show you some really good 89 score projects. The other thing I was just going to point out, just on the subject of this in general, the rumors we're hearing, it's a bit of a tangential topic, but the rumors we're hearing here in Sacramento are that materials costs are about to go up. Just regular standard inflation, when the government prints a bunch of money, costs go up, but we're also seeing shipping costs and shipping delays in materials causing shortages. And I just want to raise that as just a very real concern. It could be that a cost estimate that you received for the ATP funding round 6 months ago wouldn't be the same cost you would see in June 2021. Just want to raise that, and for everyone else too, with your own sponsors, it's just a heads up. We've been seeing actually cost savings in 2020 and 2021, but I think we might be seeing a trend the other way in 22.
All right. Thank you, Jose Luis. Anybody else on something we haven't already heard?
Hey, you say call, I say now. I dropped everything.
Should we listen to Bill Higgins?
Hey, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Well, that you know, my Twitter handle that I never use.
Yvonne, can you mute him on your end?
He just disappeared. He turned Oh my God.
Yvonne.
Yeah.
So just to respond to Jose Luis, if we're seeing cost savings, then for the existing ATP projects, then we should be getting cost savings that we can use for cost overruns.
I did.
Hold on, there he is. All right, I just muted him. He
Okay.
popped up on my
Did you hear me, Yvonne?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, Lori?
So Jose Luis was saying that they've been seeing cost savings. So then I would imagine that the existing projects, the implementers should be telling us that they're having cost savings.
Specifically, we're delivering all sorts of projects here in the region. I think our ATP projects in the SACOG region have either been recently allocated or have been actually asking for extensions. I don't think we're seeing a lot of recent ATP delivery. I'm talking about all of the projects that are happening in our region. 2020 was a good year to advertise. And yeah, if there's I believe the proportional savings is whatever was allocated and the match gets saved proportionally. I guess
so we should be seeing cost savings in the future.
Again, it's a Sacramento region. I don't know what it's like there in other parts like LA. And I'm actually worried about the opposite of cost savings in the future. I'm worried about cost overrun.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, Yvonne, I had one last really quick point to close that I missed.
Yes,
so for the bike, whatever, if we had additional funds, you know, and we can do bike highways and some new pilots, I wanted you all to be aware that some of the advocates have suggested doing that either outside the ATP or even outside the CTC with the Strategic Growth Council. We do not agree with that. We think the ATP is the appropriate program. The projects are eligible in that program. We just need dedicated funds, which this would give us to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that, Paul. Rachel, you have your hand up. Last one.
One point, we are having a hard time getting people to bid on projects in Santa Cruz County because people are so busy. And so I would just to Jose Luis's comment earlier, but I was just curious what CTC staff, if you guys have taken a position on the other elements of the Transportation California proposal, including STIP and HSIP and Bridge and other programs, if you guys are weighing in on those other non-ATP options for the windfall.
Not specifically, like Kiana mentioned, we are kind of reviewing, you know, the sort of some of the technical language that she sent us. But right now, the one that we focused on for more funds is ATP. That doesn't mean, you know, by any means funding for other programs, I think is fine with us. We just haven't specifically submitted proposals for that, just for ATP. And also, I did want to mention, Yvonne included the latest draft of Kiana's letter, which I think there was an earlier version that caused some confusion over the ATP amount. If you look in the one in the agenda for this meeting, it's $2 billion. I know there was an earlier version that had a different amount.
All right. And for the record, I got no problem funding lower scoring projects. You know, if a project was nominated to begin with, it was important and near and dear to that community, whether it scored a 65 or a 85. I don't care. I like them all. Mike, last comment, and then we're moving on to Vanessa.
Just a twist on or a different perspective maybe for projects that maybe didn't submit in cycle 5 because they didn't think they'd be competitive, kind of clearing the slate and getting the majority of these cycle 5 projects funded and out of the way should make cycle 6 pretty clear and competitive for those projects.
Good point. Good point. All right. With that, yes.
Can I just say my one before we move on from the ATP? I'm sorry, but I called you this morning. This isn't on the agenda, but I wanted to quickly say that as we were thinking about this augmentation, we're also thinking about cycle 6, and we will start doing workshops, you know, pretty soon, probably in the fall. And we would like to follow the model of what we did for cycle 5, doing central workshops and then branch workshops, depending on time and budget and travel and all that stuff. But so we're trying to kind of come up with a schedule. So if you would like us to come do a workshop in your region, and let us know if you're more interested in like a central workshop or a branch workshop, and we could go look at projects, things like that. Please let us know. Maybe let Alika know because she's trying to put a schedule together. But we thought that was very successful, and we didn't really know what we were doing last cycle. And now that we know what we're doing, we hopefully it will be even more successful. So please let us know. If you feel like your community or region really needs some extra help, maybe you're not doing as well in the program as you think you should, then we can come and try to get you some extra help. Thank you
for that. Thank you for that, Lori. Teresa.
Thank you, Yvonne. Well, it warms my heart that everyone wants to have more workshops. Yay! Oh gosh, sounds painful. So we are ready to recommend approval for the CRISA program and the STIP guidelines at tomorrow's commission meeting, and I think we're good to go. I have a lot of agencies that have requested the funds. We're ready to move fast with your funds to program them and get them allocated and get them out there. So just send them over to us. After this meeting, for the CRISA program, you're going to have to go through local assistance. But for the STIP, we will still continue doing STIP amendments to add new projects, augment new projects. If your project is programming current fiscal year, we can do it at time of vote. We are trying to be as flexible and speediest as possible. So we're good to go. Yoo-hoo. If there are no questions, because boy, we've talked about this to death for I don't know how many months. Just a real quick thing about the update to the 22 STIP. We are starting the process. I am working on updating guidelines. Any major updates to the guidelines, I will circulate them as soon as possible. There are a few things that we want to change on the STIP. And we are going to probably have a workshop early in July, just so we can talk it through. And so I've put out a schedule. It's a tentative schedule because the STIP, as you know, has a lot of statutory hearings that are required for the ITIP. The ITIP hearings are going to be scheduled in the middle of October. So I want to put out those dates for everyone so that they can put them in their calendar. And the STIP hearings are going to occur at the end of January, early February. I have some tentative dates. Hopefully, we will be able to do some form of in-person hearings as well as virtual. So I'm hoping for that. So anyways, I'll put out a schedule so that you can put it in your calendar as soon as possible. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dere. Any questions for Teresa? No? All right. Matthew.
Thanks, Yvonne. And I'll introduce myself. I see about 110 people on this call. So I'm Matthew Yozgat, the Deputy Director for SB1 Programming at the Commission. And as most of you know, I think a lot of you were participants, we will be having an information item on the agenda tomorrow to update the commissioners on 2 CTC hosted CAPTI workshops, which were held back in April 20th and April 23rd. I did want to highlight that the book item was revised on Friday afternoon as a yellow, so that it now includes a brief summary of the comments that we received, or some of the comments that we received in the body of the book item. And it also has 2 new attachments. The first being a full 15-page list of all comments that we heard. Please add that to your weekend reading list. It's quite, quite interesting, I'm sure. As well as a compilation of comment letters that were submitted to the CTC as well as to agency. Overall, we had about 40 individual commentors at both workshops with a range of comments and questions being asked. And I also wanted to say that Darwin Musavi at CalSTA will also be in attendance to field any questions or comments that commissioners or members of the public might wish to make. So at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments you might have.
Any questions for Matthew? Dominica, do you still have your hand raised? I'm not sure if that was from earlier.
It was up when Teresa spoke, so
okay.
I'm figuring it. Thank you, Yvonne.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Alicia, Local Streets and Roads.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I don't have my video working today, but I just wanted to let everyone know that the Local Streets and Roads eligibility submittal period is open in CalSmart. So all of the cities and counties can start submitting in their proposed project lists that have been adopted via resolution by their city council or county board of supervisors. That'll be open until July 1st for initial eligibility. We've already held 2 trainings and we had over 80% of the 539 jurisdictions participate. So that's always really good. We'll be sending out reminders and offering assistance. As a reminder, please let your partners know that they can send us their draft resolutions to review before they take them to council to get adopted. So therefore there are no issues and they don't risk not being deemed compliant for their funding eligibility. And so that's really it for LSR. And then for short line rail, the Santa Maria Valley Railroad is actually coming in for their allocation request for funding. So that's going to be the first allocation for the short line rail road improvement program. So congratulations and kudos to them. I see you, Sarkis. So we're very excited and ready to get this going for that program and look forward to future allocation requests.
All right. Any questions for Alicia? Thank you. Anya.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Anya Allenbacher with CTC. Just a really fast update on the local partnership formulaic program. So at the May meeting, we are proposing to add 7 new projects to the formulaic program. Should the actions in May be approved, we would have about $13 million left in the 2019 formulaic program, which is cycle 2. My book item had referenced that there were some agencies that still needed to submit applications, and I am extremely happy to report that that's no longer the case. I've received project nominations for all of the 2019 LPP funds, so I don't anticipate any of those funds lapsing. So June will be a very fun meeting for the LPP program, the formulaic program. We'll be adding a lot of projects and hopefully also having a lot of allocations. So we are on track. So that's my update. If there's any questions, happy to. Yes. Mike, did you?
Yeah, Anya, this is Mike Woodman with Nevada County Transportation Commission. Just wanted to personally thank you for your efforts in assisting a couple of our smaller jurisdictions that, it seems everything is a struggle, and your assistance and efforts are greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Anybody else? Bridget.
Good afternoon, everyone. I can see my internet really struggling, so I'm going to keep my video off and just let me know if my audio cuts out at any point. But I just wanted to provide a quick update on the Commission's Equity Advisory Roundtable. We held our first meeting on April 21st. It was open to the public, and we had attendance from 15 of our 19 roundtable members. I wanted to highlight a couple agenda items that facilitated a lot of discussion. First, Commission staff presented a draft roundtable charter and solicited feedback on the document from roundtable members. And we're working to bring a revised version of the charter to the next roundtable meeting. This is a document that kind of describes the scope and other sort of logistic information about the roundtable process. And then at that meeting on April 21st, we also began a dialogue that we are looking forward to continuing at the next meeting about public engagement best practices and barriers to public engagement. At tomorrow's commission meeting, Naila Popardin, who is one of our roundtable members, will summarize some of the feedback that was shared at that April 21st meeting. The next meeting of the roundtable will be held on Wednesday, May 26th, and we are posting the agenda and materials this Friday on our website, and we'll share with our stakeholder list. In the meantime, I wanted to let you all know that we've added a new group of web pages to the CTC's website related to our work on equity and public engagement. So when I conclude my remarks, I'll paste a couple links in the chat, one to our sort of equity landing page and also to a list of roundtable members, because I know we've gotten requests to have that on the website in the past. With that, I'm happy to take any questions about the roundtable or CTC's work related to equity more broadly.
Anybody? All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Matthew, you're up again.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Thanks, Yvonne. So for those of you that are on the RTPA listserv, which I'm guessing is all of you, hopefully you saw that Yvonne sent out a notice, like a save the dates. My team and I have put together the first handful of workshop dates for each of the SB1 competitive programs with an all program kickoff on August, I want to say 24th in the afternoon. And this is for local partnership program, congested corridors program, and trade corridor enhancement program. we're currently planning like one a month for each program through December. We're planning right now for all virtual access to these workshops as a standard, with the possibility that maybe we'll return to some in-person format, kind of to be determined, at least by 2022, which we don't have any dates in 2022 yet. I wanted to thank you, Yvonne, for sending that to the RTPA group. Amber Collins sent it to the Rural Counties Task Force. And I can take any questions if you might have them. We'll have agendas and kind of additional details up on our workshops page in advance of every workshop as we get closer to them. So that information is not on the site yet, but there is a save the date.
Thank you, Matthew. And that is the last page in your agenda packet. Any questions for Matthew? Thanks again. Any other items by commission staff? All right, moving on. Caltrans, Keith, budget and allocation capacity update and STIP fund estimate assumptions.
Let's see, Yvonne, am I coming through okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, last time I was completely shot, so good to finally be able to talk to everybody. Happy Tuesday, everyone. For tomorrow's commission meeting, we'll provide the normal updates, the first being the allocation capacity. Through March, the commission's allocated just under 50% of the total $7 billion available. And again, I'll restate that, a little less than 50%, and we're already getting into May. The May agendas does seem quite busy, and based on feedback we're hearing from many of the program managers, we do anticipate June to be quite busy as well. While initial numbers don't appear that we'll allocate the entire $7 billion as part of normal practices, that allocation capacity that is not allocated this fiscal year will carry over to next fiscal year. So that's a good thing, although we always want to try to get this money to work on projects as soon as possible. We'll share a quick comparison. This fiscal year is charting a little bit lower than the prior fiscal years, so just general trend-wise. As a general revenue update, good news to a certain extent from a bottom line across all state transportation revenue sources. We seem to be trending along current year projection lines, while gas excise taxes a little bit lower as was anticipated. All other revenue sources, diesel excise, diesel sales, weight fees, transportation and road improvement fees are a bit higher. So bottom line, we're breaking even on what the annual projections were. So that's a bit of good news in that regards there. Has already been shared by several. The May revise is expected later this week. So the budget and allocation capacity report for this May commission meeting is a little light. Any major budgetary changes that will come from May revise will provide an overview at the June commission meeting. Budget enactment, hopefully we'll get the budget signed by June 15th as required by statute and enactment by July 1. And I know it's always there and goes unspoken about at this point. FAST Act is set to expire in September. So we're definitely still eagerly and waiting and anticipating a new Transportation Act, hopefully, in that regards there. Also tomorrow, we'll be talking about the 2022 fund estimate assumptions. As presented in March, we presented the draft assumptions. So tomorrow we'll be presenting the final assumptions so we can begin to finalize the draft 2022 fund estimate to be presented in June. There will be no real major changes to the draft assumptions that we'll be presenting tomorrow. We'll still continue to recommend using Department of Finance consumption data for fuel. So in essence, what our excise tax revenue will be. And then also we will continue to recommend from a federal revenue perspective, we'll go with a more aggressive 2.7% increase using the FAST Act as the basis. Statute does require, we can't necessarily go off which draft legislation may be available. We can only go what statute is in place. So what we do know is that the FAST Act's in place, so we use that as our primary reference when estimating what our revenue resources will be in the upcoming fund estimate cycle. We know that the May revise, what we do provide in the assumptions tomorrow, any revisions made as a result of the May revise, we'll present that at the commission meeting as we prepare for June. And if there is a Federal Transportation Act approved either just after June, we will make sure that when it comes to the final fund estimate that's adopted in August, or hopefully adopted in August, we'll make sure that everything is representative of the current Transportation Act in place. I think I hit on a few of those items there. A lot of folks are sending me notes and sending us phone calls in regards to what is the fund estimate look like? What are the actual numbers? There are no numbers that we'll be sharing at the commission meeting over the next 2 days. What we're just reminding folks of is still continue to look at the 2020 fund estimate as the basis. Obviously, we had the first 2 years, but the last 3 years of the 2020 fund estimate would be the first 3 years of this 2022 fund estimate. So using the 2020 as your basis, looking at those numbers, we're just kind of using that as our baseline at this point. Obviously, the may revise as well as what the budget that's enacted in July will play a role in what the actual numbers will end up being, but just as a basis for now, if anybody's interested. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop and available for any questions you may have.
Thank you for that, Keith. Any questions for Keith? Going once, twice? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks. Alyssa, Caltrans Active Transportation Plans.
Hi there, this is Elisa Begley from Caltrans Transportation Planning. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can.
Got a thumbs up, good. Hi everybody, just by way of context, I wanted to let you know I'm in a new role in Caltrans Transportation Planning. I've been on the Caltrans SB 743 team and had worked with a number of you on the call in that capacity. And I've moved back to Transportation Planning full-time and now lead our new Office of Active Transportation and Complete Streets. So we've raised the authority of and visibility of active transportation within the Division of Transportation Planning at Caltrans. And tomorrow, our Division Chief, Marlon Flournoy, will be doing a short information item to the Commission talking about the Caltrans Active Transportation Plans. So I'm giving you a preview of that presentation tomorrow. Marlon will be talking about what the CAT plans do, their purpose, their schedule, what they deliver, the robust engagement that was conducted with both our partner agencies and the public, as well as the connection of what the plan delivers to actually getting active transportation projects funded and built. Just for everyone's knowledge, if you're not familiar with the Caltrans Active Transportation Plans, which we call CAT plans, these are an implementation tool that came out of the statewide bicycle and pedestrian plan a few years ago, back in 2017. So this is an implementation item from that plan that each Caltrans district will have an active transportation plan. And what those plans do, we call them a plan, but what they actually do is deliver location-based needs for bicycles and pedestrians for that network on the highway system and around the highway system. So what each plan does in each district is identify, from a GIS perspective, points that need improvement. And as part of the process and as part of the engagement with our partners, those needs that are identified are prioritized into different tiers. So big picture, that's what the CAT plan delivers, and we're doing that for the entire state highway system and the local system that's near the state highway system. There is a delivery schedule for each one of these district CAT plans. We're actually preparing to release the first CAT plan out of our Bay Area office, and then the next plan to be released will be our CAT plan out of the Central Coast area, so District 4 and District 5, and then there's a schedule of plan release through September 2022. So each district is in a different milestone phase. Some are just starting and have not started the outreach with their partners, but they're internally getting ready and kicking off that work and getting an internal team developed. Others, like District 4 and District 5, are preparing for release of the plans. The plans each deliver a GIS map. We call them story maps and explore maps. The story maps are basically summaries of where the needs are. And then you can drill down and you'll see a GIS map with colored lines and points. You can click on those colored lines and points to understand what need has been identified. And again, that's all in a GIS format. There has been quite a bit of engagement, both for the plans that have moved towards release and in the plans that are being just started right now. First, we develop a Caltrans core team, an internal working group of district staff and headquarters staff. Then we work with our mobility partners, agencies like yourselves, community-based organizations, pedestrian and bicycle advocates. And we also have a process to survey the general public for where they perceive the needs are on the state highway system. So there's some interactive mapping tools that we use to collect those needs. And that's been a really successful component of that process to see where the perceptions of where the needs are on the state highway system. I think with that, I'll stop. Like I said, Marlon Flournoy is going to present the presentation tomorrow at the commission meeting, and I'll see if there's any questions on these CAT plans.
Alyssa, if I can get a copy of that schedule of the different districts, that'd be great. That way all the agencies know if they don't already.
Yeah, it will be, with the PowerPoint that's being used at the meeting tomorrow, there is a schedule that shows all of the dates.
Okay.
I'll try and put something in chat.
Thanks. Peter.
Yes, hi, thank you, Alyssa, for telling us about this. This is Peter DeHaan from Ventura. And you may have said something about this, and if you said it, I'm sorry I missed it, but we have in the local agencies, just in general in California, have done a lot of planning at the local level for active transportation. A lot of that planning was done with state funds, either through Caltrans or through the active transportation program itself, through the CTC. So my question is, how is the Caltrans active transportation planning going to take into account or include the local planning in a given area that may have already been done? And two examples, in some cases, a lot of those plans might already identify or propose facilities for state highways. And in some cases, they might propose other facilities in the same vicinity that are planned that in terms of planning for the state highways to have an integrated system, it should be coordinated.
Agreed. Yes, we are not looking to reinvent the wheel. We're basing the plans on local plans as we assess what the needs are on the state highway system. So as part of that work that the districts do with the partner agencies, it is based on the local planning that's occurred already.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Alyssa. Appreciate you being available. Sujaya or Dee. Is Dee with us?
I'm with you.
Ah, there you are. You want to kick it off? Local assistance updates.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. Always good to be here. Really quick, local assistance. Really quick on Krista. Our program manager is Jaime Espinoza. He's been working with our district DLEs, of course. He's been kind of rigorous, just vigorously working on guidelines that he's going to be able to share with everybody here. So he'll be holding a workshop for that. So you'll see invitation for that soon. Wanted to let everybody know. I know there's, good questions and so on and so forth. So you'll have that forum.
Nice.
That is the Carissa, just a quick, update there. I think one of the big kind of conversations, and I'm going to have Sajaya lead, is OA delivery. I've noticed the OA trend is a lot slower than compared to last year. Team has told me, Dee, though, although a lot slower over the last 5 years, though, if you look at trends, we're somewhere in the middle. But I do want to, take some time to get some feedback. So Sajaya is going to facilitate that conversation in a moment. And then I've got, of course, the rest of our DLA team here. Robert Peterson thinks he's going to talk about lasting funds, HIP updates. And then Kelly will round us off with training day with you, Yvonne. I know you've been, you've just a quick update on that. I'd asked him, hey, let's round out some themes on that and share with the group here. And then last but not least, Kiana, thanks so much for working with us, as well as Chris Lee. Kelly's going to give a brief update on kind of next steps as far as the outreach of CEQA for NEPA reciprocity. And then that will round out local assistances, updates to everybody. So I think with that, Sajaya, on to you. Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. So quick update on OA usage. As of April 30th, we've used 567 million of our OA, and that's 47.2%. If you compare the OA usage last year, on April 30th, it was 70.3%. So we're much slower this year. But if you compare the last 5 years of data, OA usage was anywhere between 35% to 70% by the end of April. So we're somewhere in the middle, looking at the history. So one thing we wanted to ask from the RTPA members that, what are the challenges that your region is facing in submitting projects for obligation? Either we could discuss it now, or you could put it in the chat in the interest of time. But that's some feedback that we'd like to get and see how we can help. Any comments on that now?
Anybody?
Oh, I'll just chime in. SACOG, we are not actually experiencing challenges. We've got a bunch of delivery coming in this month.
Okay.
Yeah. I could reach out to my locals, and then whatever comes up, send it your way.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. Thank you. Going on to obligation plans, we have not received the obligation plans from all of the regions yet. We still are waiting for, I think, about 9 regions to send us the plans, and they were due April 1st. Based on what we've received so far, it indicates that we will still have $55 million of OA balance by the end of the fiscal year. So nothing for the AR, and we will still have 55 million left. This includes the 24 million OA balance from the last federal fiscal year. So again, I want to ask, what are the challenges that the regions are facing in submitting obligation plans?
Sujaya, this is Dawn. Yvonne, do you mind if I?
No, absolutely. I was writing. I didn't see your hand.
Yeah. I believe our plan actually cleared our apportionment. So, I guess a challenge for us would be, right, we're at the tail end of the FAST Act. We don't know what things are going to necessarily look like. I can try and go out and get some CMAQ loans or other things to clear some of the rest of my AC, but I still do have AC. I have it out on the books in RSTP and in CMAQ. Most of my RSTP comes in urbanized area, and then I have CMAQ. So those would be my biggest challenges, would be, clearing more of my AC, but needing loans to do it.
Okay.
Sajaya, I could send out a blast to find out what the issues are, and then forward whatever information I do get.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for.
I think the regional agencies would need to reach out to their locals.
Okay, thank you. And a couple of more items on the OA management, the Best Management Practices Committee. We had a very engaging meeting last week. And during the meeting, several of the members recognized the need for increased accuracy and timely submittal of the obligation plans. In fact, one of the suggestions that came out of the committee was that
we need to add language to the policy to ensure there are some consequences, either when regions don't submit the obligation plans in a timely manner or when they don't follow their obligation plan, just so it helps us to better build that queue. And we're still working on the policy language, so there's still room for discussion on that. And based on the request from some RTPA reps, we were looking at having an online form to enter obligation plans. So this is for the next cycle. We're just trying to look into the data needs for it right now. And we are looking into using CalSmart as the database. Again, we're just starting this conversation. We don't know if that's going to be feasible, but that'd be easy because most of the regions already have a login. And perhaps if we have another module to CalSmart, it'd be easy to enter the obligation plans. So there's no time that's lost in trying to collate information. So we are looking into that. And that was one of the suggestions that came out of the BMP committee. So that is all I have. And I will wait to get some feedback from the RTPAs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Is Robert with us?
Yes, I am. How
All
you
right.
doing?
Thank you.
So yeah, this is the ongoing HIP update. So as you know, I've reported on this before. So yeah, we've got 3 years as I reported last 17-18 as our biggest concern. Right now we still have about 34 million that is left to obligate. Of that, and I have a spreadsheet here I can send to you, Ivan, and then you can send out I basically took our report that we have on our website that we post monthly, so everybody can have access to it, and I just condensed it down to one spreadsheet. But in essence, it's just another FYI that these funds need to be obligated by end of September or they will lapse and they will no longer be used. So I have been working with Jose Luis and our rural MPO, Tony Cano, just on some of them. So I do know there's a lot of them have plans to obligate. So that's the good news from what I can report. About 4.2 million is left with no status. So I've got a couple agencies I don't have any status on. That's about 12% of the funds. The biggest chunk that have yet to obligate is from LA Metro, but they've said that they will be obligating their funds, and they have like 23 million that's on the books right now. But I've been assured that those that will be programmed and obligated here shortly. So yeah, it's so far there's, like I said, 4.2 is left. Everybody else, I have a column saying that they plan to obligate. So hopefully everybody follows through on that, and then those remainder. If I send that to you, Ivan, and then you can send it out to everybody, to hopefully those agencies will take a look at it and not only obligate 17-18, but 18-19 and 19-20. So yeah, it's looking pretty good, but we still got some work to do here.
All right. Questions, starting off with Sarkis.
Thanks, Yvonne. Hi, Robert. Thank you again for all your work on this. I know at a prior meeting, there was discussion about potentially giving like smaller MPOs or the rural agencies state cash, and then the state taking this money for larger state projects. Was that considered? Because we got another slug of money for the HIP, and it's a very small amount. And for our region, we try to put it on Caltrans projects, like large Caltrans projects. And for us, it just, it complicates things in terms of all the different fund sources and then adding another fund source. So if there's any way that the state can consider state cash for like regions like that are a part of the state exchange program. Thank you.
Yeah, as far as the programming of and all that, I would be working with your Caltrans partners on that to see if that could happen. I don't have any say on what you're doing. I would think that it could be something that should be possible, but like I said, I'm on the local side over here, just kind of reporting this. So yeah, any funding or programming decisions on swaps and all that, really work with your your state folks on seeing if you can make some sort of agreement.
So would that be like through D Lamb or Keith Duncan, or who should we contact about that?
Well, I would go to the project level, who, as far as making that funding, swap, programming. It really has to come down to programming and where those funds will be. Because right now these are federal funds, and so they would have to agree, to make that make that exchange. And sometimes it's easier said than done, to doing those things, even though it sounds simple on paper. Sometimes because there's a match involved, there's a lot of things that with these funds, it's a little bit more complicated than just making that exchange, which at that level I wouldn't have any knowledge on that.
We'll look into it, Sarkis. I'll reach out to a few folks and I'll contact you directly. Rachel.
Sort of piggybacking on Sarkis, we've added our HIP funds onto a few of our highway projects. And I think one of the challenges we're facing, I know Jose Luis did a whole workshop on this, on how to do things concurrently. But one of the challenges that we're having is district staff, because it's a capital highway project, is waiting until the CTC votes on the STIP funds before starting even the E76 obligation process. So Jose's like on the edge of his seat, ready to jump on this. So on the local side, I think we worked it through with local assistance to do things concurrently a little bit more. But then on the capital side, it seems like there's still a little bit of lag, and maybe that's unique to our district, but I'm not sure if other districts or other regions are having that same challenge with having folks do kind of the RFA at the same time for HIP funds, or if you have suggestions on how to get that all moving concurrent so it all happens the day the CTC votes on authorizing construction, the whole thing gets obligated.
Jose Luis?
Very exciting. You're going to allocate at the May CTC meeting, Rachel?
No, it's at the June CTC meeting.
Because I'm going to June CTC meeting and I thought I deserved a gold star, but May CTC meeting, man, whoever does that, I will be treating them to beer post COVID and stuff. Because I wanted to be that guy that's like, all right, and the next item is we'd like to allocate funds to SACOG's region. How SACOG managed to turn an allocation request 2 months ago to CTC.
No. Just to be clear, I'm talking HIP funds, not CRISA funds.
Oh, I thought we were talking
Don't
about...
be impressed. 2017 HIP funds.
So wait,
you definitely don't get a star.
Yeah, don't get too excited.
So HIP funds don't have to go to CTC.
But we have it on a project that also has CTC funds. So they're just waiting for everything to happen before obligating one. Yeah.
And then if I'm still hearing correctly, it's Caltrans Capital is the sponsor.
Oh, Teresa has an idea.
I know, it's Teresa, you want to say something.
Okay, so I thought we had worked it out, Rachel, where the process can go simultaneously, where you turn in your E76 package and your allocation package, where it is being reviewed at the same time. You fix all the issues that you have either with one or the other. And as soon as the commission does the allocation, then the E76 can be processed. That is something that we've been working on for years now, but I'm not sure if it's by district and it's separate. So there should not be a hiccup or a delay anymore. And by the way, Jose Luis, I am having some agencies allocate their CRISA funds in May.
Damn it.
Just so you know.
Oh.
I'm so happy for them.
Oh, awkward. I thought for sure SACOG would be first.
So yeah,
I thought so too.
Man, that's so good. That's so good. The concurrent schedule is the default at Caltrans. That you turn in your RFA and you turn in your request for allocation. and they both go together. The difference is Caltrans local assistance. The Caltrans capital thing is interesting nuance. Caltrans local assistance on behalf of cities and counties and transit operators and whatever, they can process an RFA for construction in like 3 weeks, like consistently 21 days, that sucker's in and then out the door. And so that sponsor can go out to advertise. For the CTC, and I know today's is like, it's not the CTC, but for the joint CTC Caltrans process, you look at the CTC prep schedule, it's 2 months lead time for a sponsor to go to the California Transportation Commission. So is it just unmuted?
I have an SB 184 process that Rachel uses all the time. So that is not even an excuse. The 2 months is no longer an excuse. It's like you send me an email and I respond within that date, and that you can do it.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Well, that's if it's state funding. If it's federal
Yes.
SNP allocation,
Yes.
it's a whole
You
different.
have a different
list,
issue.
And then, district
That's
capital.
out of my
type
control.
process.
That is out of my control.
All right, let's get some order here.
Let me continue. So
Order.
2 months is what the sponsor does. They get their stuff in. And in theory, it only takes 3 weeks to authorize. So they end up spending the other month and a week waiting for the CTC allocation. But the nuance is the CTC says you can advertise anytime for construction. You just can't award until the CTC meeting. So the presentation, the thing I pioneered, I can come talk to you and your region and your sponsors, is you go to local assistance and you say, let's AC this sucker. So you AC your HIP funds. You AC whatever federal funds you have on there, and local assistance will, if they won't, have them give me a call, but they will process your AC before the CTC allocation.
So totally agree. Just to clarify, it's the capital side for a project on the state highway system that Caltrans is the lead for construction.
So then it's just a matter of persuading whoever it is that's got the corner office to go sign the AC so that the HIP goes first, so that at least you get the federal authorization proceed. Then they can advertise, and then they're well on their way before that CTC meeting. The other thing I didn't quite catch is, Teresa, even with the joint processing, there is a natural incentive for sponsors, including Caltrans Capital, to not even bother turning in the federal paperwork yet. Because you turn in your CTC paperwork so that you're in 2 months in advance. And then you're like, well, the federal authorization paperwork, okay, it only takes them 3 weeks. I'll wait a little bit. And then you get your CTC allocation. I'm like, well, maybe I'll turn it in now. And that can cascade. Some sponsors I've noticed will not get their federal authorization to proceed until like a month or 2 months after a CTC meeting. You've probably seen the time extensions where they come in and their only excuse is we didn't actually authorize yet. And that's a real thing. Anyways, Rachel, it might just be a human being issue. You got to talk to the right person and convince them.
I will instill them with confidence to move forward, and it's not the CTC, not to wait around for CTC.
All right, any other questions for Robert?
Speaking of sponsors, the agencies that are allocating their CRISA funds at the May meeting, make sure and put your name in the chat so you can get on Jose Luis's beer tab.
Good point.
So yeah, to finish up my report, you know, the 17-18 is our focus. In the 18-19, we got about half left, about 43%. You'll see in my spreadsheet. And then this is HIP funds. And in the last year, it's barely been touched. We still got 81% left to obligate. So
yeah,
we're obligating everything on one project with CMAQ.
All right.
Done.
And I'll send the spreadsheet to you.
And I'm still getting on Jose Luis's tab. Nafili.
I'm looking. So Robert, so Bakersfield, still no plan. Modesto and Oxnard, still no plan? Or it's 100% obligated? I'll follow up with you, Robert.
Okay. Yeah, if there's some errors on my spreadsheet, please let me know, because you know we update this every month, and so far, yeah, if they have plans.
And you're sending me that spreadsheet.
You bet.
All right, thank you. Nafili.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess, you know, we're not exactly on this, but speaking of the CRISA approval by CTC. I know then the next, the project list goes to Caltrans, and then it runs through local assistance. And so I'm just wondering, since we do have local assistance on the call, how is there going to be a delay in getting through Caltrans? In a recent meeting with my with District 1 staff, they didn't even realize that the funding was available to regions yet, and mentioned something about guidelines in August. So if we're hurrying to get the lists approved, are we then going to be stuck because we can't get through the local assistance process? Has anybody heard anything about that?
I have not.
Trying to take myself on mute here. It's Dee. No, great question. Guidelines definitely not until August. Not sure. Let's go ahead and speak about that. But really quick. So my program manager is not here on the line, but left me with some process flows, if you will. So the projects appear on and has been approved via the CTC project list. And then submittal of the project allocation form, which is already created to local assistance. It's very similar to the HSIP allocation request. And then from there, authorization is approved by FHW, and submittal of the EPPR. Like I said, there is going to be more guidance within the next, I'd say, few days. We should get an invitation, and then guidance will be dispersed accordingly. We'll get a chance to, everybody here will get a chance to ask questions. So look for that. I mean, I don't have the nitty gritty. I do have, like I said, just that quick high level, but we'll definitely be completely diligent. We know that this has to be fast and furious. So just want to let you know we're here. We are working on it. The projects that have already come forward, my understanding is, that's gotten kind of assistance along the way with Vanessa's help as well. So it's happening already. So we're assisting where we can. And then this formal rollout will be coming your way, as soon as possible here.
Okay, so if we were one of the agencies that has already put in a list, we should, in theory, still be able to move forward and not have to wait until those guidelines are completed before the next step?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I say something real quick on Nafili? Nafili, so your project is going to be approved at the commission meeting. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, the allocation has occurred. So then you just need to get it through the local assistance process.
Right.
If for some reason, if the guidelines take a little longer for local assistance until August, I'm willing to do the same for June. But I need to coordinate with local assistance, okay? Because after May, I was going to hand it over to Caltrans to process the list, but I'm willing to do the same thing we did this month. And then that way local assistance can just focus on that end after the approval of the list. But I will work with Dee and her team to come up with a streamlined process that works for everyone, and we can get the funds to you as soon as possible.
Right. Thank you.
Right. So thanks for that, and great question. Thanks for that. So it's a balancing act, right? So because we want to get this out, just fast and furious here, one thing is developing more of a concrete process procedure so that it can get documented, so it can get referenced. But then on the other hand, we are working with Odessa to, for those who are ready, we're working with her to get the process already going, to get it processed. So that's why you're seeing, okay, the chicken before the egg or egg before the chicken here, so that's why you're kind of seeing that. We're trying to get it, we're trying to work, I guess, in two modes, if you will, or pace. So I want to leave you with that.
Yeah, thank you. That was really helpful.
Thank you for that. Dawn, you have your hand up? Dawn Batiste?
I forgot to put it down, sorry.
Okay. LA Metro.
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. A question on the HIP and whether Caltrans and FHWA can consider a similar process as followed by FTA, which is to obligate old funds first. So pretty much the funding coming to the urbanized area and the MPO region, pretty much you have the discretion to avoid the lapsing, is that you obligate Caltrans the funds that are subject to lapse, pretty much all their funds first, and keep the flexibility to the state pretty much at the end. Thank you.
Interesting. And that's pretty easy. And then we provide the list.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what we do for transit. Good one. Anything else? Thank you, Robert. Moving on. It's 3:50. Kelly, training day, something that's local assistance has been working on for a few months.
Okay, I'll try to keep this quick. After the last RTPA meeting, we sent out a survey, both internally and externally, to develop some themes or see if there were themes and concepts that we could cover in a training day. We're calling it the training day. That's just the code name at this point. We might end up calling it something else. We don't know, but we're looking at maybe a half day partnershiping meeting with the RTPA and local assistance. And the themes that we've developed are really surround everything that we're talking about right here. Funding, program management and implementation, compliance and guidance, environmental and right-of-way, and just general procedures and how local assistance works and how we can better collaborate and work to deliver, help you guys deliver the projects that we're all working on. So the next steps in the next couple of weeks, our team will be putting together a draft agenda. We're working with Yvonne on that. And we'll be reaching out because we don't want this all about local assistance. We want to hear from RTPA groups and members, and we want you guys to be involved in presenting if you want to. So we'll be reaching out to you guys. And so if you would like any additional information on that, I've dropped my contact info, my email in the chat, and you can obviously talk to Yvonne too as well. But I know he's a busy guy, so if you want to talk to me, that's fine too. We got a team working on it. So, but we're looking at a half-day session or maybe more at a minimum, and something that might become more regular between local assistance and on our RTPA. Okay, so next Dee asked me to speak a little bit about CEQA for NEPA reciprocity and that program and give an update on where we're at. CEQA for NEPA is the alternative environmental review process that was found in the FAST Act from a few years ago. It's a 12-year pilot program. Caltrans is currently considering whether or not we're going to apply for that program and whether or not the 25 agencies in the state that are interested can apply as well. Right now, we had a meeting back in April with the Transportation Cooperation Committee group to a special committee meeting just to gauge interest in the program. We didn't really get the feedback or the insight that we were looking at from our local partners, but at this point, we don't really know what the benefits are to doing it. We don't know the costs associated with creating a whole new program for environmental compliance. CEQA for NEPA would put Caltrans into the local agency CEQA process, and that's something that we currently don't do. So there's a lot of questions, and there's some questions that we weren't able to answer then. So what our team is doing is we're trying to put together a list or a flow chart and to try to compare, the current process to what CEQA for NEPA would look like. So as somebody said in the meeting that, perhaps if we had a crystal ball or a time machine, we could go in the future and see what it looks like. We do have NEPA assignment to look to for how we created a new program for compliance. But again, in the next couple weeks, look for some invites, perhaps to smaller engagements with groups out there because we really need the best information at hand so Caltrans can make a good decision on whether or not to apply for the program or not. So Dee, I don't know if you had anything to add, and if there's any questions, please feel free.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions for Kelly? All right. Thank you for that. Where are we? Scott, ITSP update?
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Sauer. I'm the Office Chief for Multimodal System Planning. We're the lead office for the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan, the ITSP. I'll give you a quick update where we are. We're in the process of putting together our internal draft of the plan. We're working closely with our internal functional units, other divisions, and the districts to basically create the document itself. We're updating the strategic interregional corridor summaries that are in the document there. And we're developing, you've probably heard about this, the ITIP scoring criteria, which is currently being reviewed by our management. The goal is to get that out as quickly. One second. Sorry about that. I had to pause there. We're doing the ITIP scoring criteria, which is being reviewed by management. We want to get this out to you guys before the draft plan actually goes out for public review. So we're trying to get it as quickly as possible so everyone can get a chance to review it and there'll be no surprises and take input from you guys. We actually had a public survey on our website. We recently closed it end of last month. 319 people participated. So we think that's pretty good for a plan like the ITSP, which is a little vague for the public itself. But I know for the partner agencies, you guys are very well educated on it. We're summarizing that information. We'll put a summary report on our website. We did that with the partner workshops last year. We're going to do the same thing this cycle. So we'll put it on the website for everyone to see it. Hopefully we'll get that soon. We're going to be using that as we continue to develop the plan. So we appreciate that input for everybody. The ITSP is expected to be released to the public for a 60-day public review on August 18th. So we got through August 18th through October 18th for the review. The goal is still to get it done, finalized by December 31st of this year. And I think that's a quick update. Does anybody have any questions on that or anything at all about the ITSP or comments?
Thanks for that, Scott. Any questions for Scott? All right. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate you letting me come and speak. It's nice to get to have a chance to speak to you guys. And if you have any comments, feel free to contact me by phone or email. I'd appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Rambabu, are you with us for an ITIP meetings with headquarters districts, RTPAs? What's been going on with the ITIP?
Yes,
Behind
good
closed doors?
afternoon, Ivan. Hear me?
Yes.
Good. Should I call you Ivan or should I call you Ivan?
You can call me whatever you want. I've been called worse.
So good afternoon, Ivan, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining the statewide ITIP informational meeting in middle of April. I think April 15th, we met to talk about the timeline and some of the other 2022 ITIP details. So at that meeting, I mentioned that the meetings between headquarters, districts, and RTPAs would begin in the first week of May. So we had a little bit of change of plan as Scott talked about ITSP. We want to make sure that we have some information that we want to share regarding the ITSP as well at these meetings. So we haven't started scheduling meetings yet, but sometime later part of this week, I'll start scheduling the meetings. And we want to make sure that our planning ITSP team also are at the table so we can have these focused discussions in your region and ask specific questions. So that's all I have. I just wanted to share that if you haven't heard about a meeting, it's not because district did not invite you, because we haven't started the meetings yet. That's all I have, you on.
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Any questions for Rambabu? All right. Last item on today's agenda is just criteria for Caltrans support letters for federal earmarks. I did reach out to Marlon, and he will be talking more about this at the June RTPA meeting. I've heard from several regions, some of you did not have any problems getting a support letter for your project if it was on the state highway system from Caltrans. Other of you were not so successful. So really just want to find out what criteria is Caltrans using, just to be aware and if it's being applied consistently moving forward. So Marlon couldn't be here with us today, but he said he'd be happy to address it at the June RTPA meeting. Mike?
Yeah, Yvonne, this is Mike Woodman with the Nevada County Transportation Commission. And I've had similar comments from agencies across the North State Super Region, where some received support letters and others did not. So I think it's important for Caltrans to discuss what criteria they were using in giving out support letters. To me, it seems like, if we're pursuing federal earmark funds, it would be in the state's benefit to provide support letters for all of the agencies and let the chips fall where they may if we're bringing federal funding to the state. So yeah, a little concerning, and would like to hear what criteria they were basing those decisions on. So I'm glad they're coming back in June.
Okay.
Oh, and it'd also be nice to see a list of what projects received support letters and which projects didn't, because I think that'll give us a clearer picture of, what projects aren't getting supported.
I will ask. Anything else not on the agenda? Otherwise, it is exactly 4 o'clock.
Hey, Yvonne.
Yes, sir.
I want to apologize for the faux pas. Apparently, I was not muted when I took a phone call, so I apologize for infecting your meeting that way. And we'll do whatever banishment you give me. My apologies.
Yeah, right.
You were muted before you said anything bad.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a really good thing because I was about to diss Nevada County.
I was asking everybody, shh, can't hear them. Anyway, it was, yes, Elizabeth.
Yeah, we were able to get a letter of support, and our understanding was that District 10 anyway was, grading the projects against, I guess, whether they met the goals of CAPTI or, other climate-related change goals. So I think one of our projects, we got a letter for it, but it was kind of given a medium rating because it doesn't, have a really strong nexus with CAPTI, but they were willing to provide a letter. So has anybody heard anything else? Was that what you heard, Mike?
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard through the grapevine, and that's concerning to me. The CAPTI is a draft plan. It has not been adopted. And the intent of the CAPTI is to leverage state transportation funding. And we're talking about federal earmark funding. So I'm not sure why we're, comparing that to CAPTI at this point. My project in Nevada County did not get a support letter at first. And then through some significant efforts, we did get a support letter. But our project aligns with CAPTI. But it was viewed as capacity increasing, even though it's exempt for transportation conformity and a gap closure. So I don't know if the folks reviewing the projects weren't transportation folks or where the disconnect is, but it would be nice to know what criteria they were using.
Right. Rachel.
I put it in the comments also, but just curious with the raise grants going, I think applications are due in early July, and I know from our district we have to provide some level of information, kind of similar to what we had to do for the earmarks, I think by early June. And so I'll again be curious to see how the state's deciding what they'll submit as a state, as well as what they would provide support letters on, ideally before the next RTPA meeting. Maybe we could follow up via email to just get something from headquarters on a little bit more on the criteria that they're planning to use.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Nope. Once, twice, that's it. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. Good turnout, good discussion.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Adios.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.